Welcome to Watching the Throne, a lyrical analysis of Kanye West. My name is Travis Bean, and yes, I know Chris isn't here. You're sad. There's not much to do about it right now, but I do have a special guest with me. The first guest episode we've had in our week of features where we're going to have people on talking about their first reactions to Jesus is King, Kanye's new album. We have the one and only Cole Cuchna with us. How you doing today, Cole?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Cole is the host of the Dissect podcast, and your second season covered Kanye West, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. So I think you are uniquely qualified to be here.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I've been obviously following Kanye since the beginning. Spent a lot of time thinking about Kanye, writing about his music, and just riding the roller coaster that is Kanye.
That's the best part of being a Kanye fan, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even when he infuriates you, you're like, man, he's doing it, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
So before we jump into the album, I thought let's take this opportunity to just really quick overview. We know you're a huge Kanye fan. Yeah, you're here. We get it. But so let's say like the past year, like between Ye and now, and just what has been kind of your roller coaster? What's the roller coaster been like for you with Kanye? And have you been there with like his talking points? Have you liked the music he's been putting out? Like, how are you reacting to his overall vibe?
Yeah, I would say after Yeezus was my favorite Kanye album. It still is. And after that, I would say very much, I was always a fan, but I would say that album specifically made me really, really, really interested, way more than I was before with Kanye. And so since then, I've really been following him more closely, probably than anyone else, maybe aside from Kendrick. But yeah, I would say around the life of Pablo is when I started to, I don't know if I would say become less of a fan, but I would say my perspective on how I viewed him changed after that album, and definitely in the subsequent years following that album, and especially these past year and a half. I would say the best way to describe that shift is like, I've always had a ton of empathy for him, and I mean for everyone, and that was one of the things in my season on Twisted Fantasy I was trying to really evoke, was like empathy for Kanye, but also just and using him as kind of like a barometer on our empathetic capacity in terms of just how we view celebrity and the experiences of others. And it's very easy to judge people in positions of success, but like they're still human and they're still going through things. And weirdly enough, you start, the transparency of his emotional states became less and less masked, and I would say more and more out in the open, kind of culminating really with Ye and, him expressing mental health on that album and his bipolar diagnosis and all that. But, so I've learned to really take like a long view on Kanye. I really never try to like judge him in the moment. I try to judge him always after the fact, and always from like a historical perspective, but also from like it's like I just want him to be okay in the same way that I want every human to be okay. Mm-hmm. And I try to reserve judgment because I don't really understand what it's like to be in that position of influence and power. And as much as like a lot of his shenanigans, I guess you could say, or backlash is definitely his responsibility, I still don't judge those things as harshly, it seems, as like other people do. So with all that to say, like these past year and a half, there have definitely been moments where I'm like, I don't quite see the end game here, or this definitely could have been expressed in a way clearer way. But
Kanye,
yeah, but if you're willing to take the time, and I understand why some people just don't, because like they're not as invested as someone like you or me, but like, yeah, if you do take the time to understand what he's trying to say, there is definitely usually logic behind it, and I don't think his intentions are bad for the most part. I do genuinely think he's on this mission in his own head to like free people from kind of this mental slavery he views and trying to get people to think differently. And to do that, you kind of have to act differently and you have to express things differently. And part of that process is like risk. So, he's going to miss and he's going to stumble and he's going to, do some things that are questionable. But, if you believe that he has good intentions, whether you believe or you agree with how he's going about it, like that's the approach that I always try to take, even when I feel like, my intuition is to like judge or something. I always kind of like catch myself and say, well, let's see how this plays out. And we could talk about it like a year from now and see like where he is. Cause it's like, if you judge, sorry, I'm rambling here, but if you judge like Kanye on like Yay, or no, if you judge Kanye on the Trump hat, right? And like, that's all you saw, but then you didn't really pay attention to everything that played out after that moment. It's like, yeah, you could very easily kind of paint him in this one way, but it's like, I see someone more than anything with Kanye as someone just trying to figure shit out, who has a huge microphone and like arguably, top 5 influence of anyone living on the world right now. Yet he's still trying to figure out his own shit, like his own story, his own emotions. Like he's simultaneously like this figure of influence, but also just dealing with what everyone else deals with, is like, how do we make it on this earth? How do we, find some semblance of happiness through all the suffering that's kind of inherent with life? And like, I really see that with Kanye. Like I can see him suffering. Like I can see him, as much as he tries to mask it and he puts on this grandiose kind of personality, like beneath that, I see real suffering. And I've seen that really since his mom died. And so all that to say, like, I try to keep all that in mind with him kind of like doing his like maneuvering and shenanigans and all this stuff. So
yeah. It's okay that you rambled, because I did a 25-minute episode before it. It was literally just me talking at no point. I don't even know how I did it.
Yeah.
I guess Kanye brings it out of you.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree that with you on Kanye, that the reason I love him, the reason I find him so inspiring, is not because I always agree with what he says. It's because of what you said. It's because he's always willing to figure it out. He's willing to be vulnerable and naked, and to talk through his ideas very openly. Most people, you sit down for an Ellen DeGeneres interview and all your talking points are laid out and you're not going to say anything outlandish. Kanye is when Kanye does an interview, a talk show interview, he's literally looking at the audience when he's talking. He's trying to make a connection. He's trying to do something more. And, thinking through everything you just said, like, I think that all leads to, when you sit down to listen to Jesus is King, this has been years in the making. Kanye's fall off the public, his addictions, him falling victim to his vices, all the ups and downs. Now we have Jesus is King, which to me, he was presenting as like this moment of redemption or spiritual awakening. And, to me, he sounds finally healthy when he's doing, the interview of Zane Lowe. He still sounds like crazy Kanye in so many ways, but like at the same time, he's somebody at peace with himself and ready to step in a new direction. And, all that comes in when you sit down to listen to Jesus is King.
I would say like, I've been very interested in this album, since I saw him start to do stuff with the Sunday service. And I mean, we'll see how it plays out, but this very much could be like, you can think of his discography like a one big narrative. And it seems like since the very beginning, like he's always talked about God. And you can see the way that he talks about God kind of change from, college dropout to like Jesus or kind of, I don't know. It's like, and it seems like he was always kind of trying to like reach for this, and this might end up being this kind of grand moment, the grand shift, the grand kind of not resolution, but like some kind of, very crucial turning point that his whole kind of life and discography was leading toward. I mean, it could be that, or it could be just like a phase, and then like Bob Dylan, he kind of goes back to what he was doing before. But we'll
How
see
crazy
how,
would
like,
that be if we get another Yeezus?
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Actually, this whole thing is reminding me of Bob Dylan when he briefly went, was born again and made, I think, 2 or 3 albums that were Christian albums, but then kind of ended up turning away from that years later.
Sure.
So again, take the long view with Kanye. We'll enjoy it for what it is now, but I'm sure 5 years from now we'll have a different perspective on it.
Yeah. Actually, funny enough, you're talking about this kind of looking at his career as his albums by album as a narrative. I just wrote a piece on Forbes about how, to me, Jesus is King is kind of the culmination of like a 15-year narrative of his entire career.
Yeah.
Because College Dropout is like probably his most, I don't want to say most spiritual album, but to me, that's the album where you feel him most channeling God.
Yeah.
Songs like Jesus Walks and Never Let Me Down, like Jay Ivy's verse is literally God speaking through him. And that is like a turning point in the album where Kanye, decides to go out in the world and like do more with his music. And to me, I guess I don't think I've really heard that level of spirituality and the inspiration to carry out God's word since the College Dropout and Jesus is King. I mean, it's in the title. Like, this album is that. It's like it's his chance to do that again. So that
you
was
saw
really,
some of it. Yeah. I mean, you saw some of it on Life is Pablo too. Life of Pablo as well. Ultralight being the biggest example. And if I remember correctly, that was supposed to be like the last song on that album before it was the first. So it makes sense that it was like that micro narrative was like working towards kind of finding God.
Yeah.
And when you hear it first, of course, it's like you hear the fall from grace almost, or like, you hear the contrast between what he wants to be and what he is now. But yeah, I mean, this all could be, this kind of culmination moment for his life, his discography, all that. So we'll just kind of have to see how it plays out.
Yeah. I think the biggest difference to me between like Jesus is King and the Life of Pablo is that the Life of Pablo's narrative is solely, it's kind of a retelling of the Paul the Apostle story. And so, I mean, obviously there it's like a link to God, but it's telling a story that I think is more, than God. It's about reaching God. And I think that's what Ye and Kitsy Ghost are about too. That's why Cuddy Montage ends with, God, shine your light on me, save me, please. He's still not one with God. He's still looking to become part of God. And to me, that's what Jesus is King represents. Like, it's finally like, I'm making an album for God. Like, I'm finally carrying his word and trying to inspire people through that word. So yeah. With all that said, let's get into it. I already rambled about my first reaction, so we're just going to concentrate on Cole here. So how do we walk through this? You put on the first song, like instantly, like, what are you thinking?
I mean, it's Sunday service, it's literally Sunday service. So, you just kind of recall this whole year. I thought it was, one of the thoughts I had for every hour we're talking about. And, obviously has this like very explicit gospel feel, upbeat, very joyous. It's like all the aspects of, I love gospel music, although I don't listen to it, regularly, but the feeling that I get when I listen to it is like really warm, and like that's why I like Chance's music. I understand some people are off put by that, but it's like I always get a great feeling when it's just like positive energy, major tonality, just like beautiful singers, just like wailing. I just love that sound. So, every hour is very much that. And I always thought it was very Kanye that he wasn't even on his opening song. I feel like that's kind of a theme.
He's barely on Ultralight Beam.
Yeah. So, it just kind of sets the tone in terms of like how he's going to be laying this out. You can think metaphorically, and him not being on the song is because like, this album is not his, it's God's or whatever. But I don't know if you thought about it that way, but it was very appropriate to the buildup of this album to kind of basically just feature a Sunday service track as the opener. I thought was definitely indicative of the moment. Yeah.
I'm glad you're on this show, by the way, because you know all about production and everything. That's a big feature of your show. And I'm just I'm more to me, whenever I think about the production or the sonic, the soundscape of an album, I'm thinking more of like how it fits into the narrative.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how you feel then about the transition between Every Hour to Salah, because like you said, Every Hour is very open. It's a choir. It feels like you're in church. Mm-hmm. And then Salah, like, it's a Kanye song.
Yeah.
There's synths. There's like, what is your reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of my favorite production, at least production speaking. Like, I took just like very, very little notes as I was listening the first time. And one of my notes is production is amazing. Like, it starts with this organ, which is, obviously very reminiscent of the church. There's no drums. There's not a lot of drums in this album, but the way that he uses rhythm within the instruments, like for instance, I could be wrong, but I don't think there's drums on Every Hour, but it has this really great bounce. And I think it's a piano that's carrying that bounce primarily, and the gospel, but it's like, or the choir. And at least Salah doesn't start with drums. I can't recall the full song, but, yeah, I mean, I would say overall, one of my notes is like the production on this album is really good. More than the song structure, more than the lyricism, the production. And maybe this is just the way that I listen to production first and lyrics second, but I was definitely impressed with the production. And in a comparison to Ye, which I feel like is definitely unpolished, this felt more polished, and I'm glad that he took I know it sucks to wait an extra month, but I'm glad he did that, because it sounds way more together and cohesive and full than at least in comparison to Ye. So I was glad to hear that sound was kind of back. And Salah, I think, is a great example of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Salah was that was the baner. That's what got people going at the Chicago listening party. Like,
oh, it did, yeah. I can see
people
that.
were moving around in waves. Like, holy shit! Like, are you hearing this?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and coming into this project, I kind of had a feeling. I mean, he's always flirted with gospel influences and church influences in his production, but like to create an album with that in mind, I just knew this could be something special, just because, his sound is very, it converts well to this kind of gospel sound mixed with his samples, mixed with his drums. Like, that's what kind of classic Kanye production was built on. And to incorporate like these choirs and stuff, it just really adds like a really harmonious element that, to me, yeah, again, it just makes you feel really good.
Talking about feeling good, Follow God, the next track, had me dancing in my apartment as I listened to it. How about you?
Yeah, a lot of these songs I was like, I listened on my like studio monitors, and a lot of these songs had me definitely nodding really hard. This was Follow God was, starts out with a very classic Kanye sample, which the sample says "stretch my hands to you," which was really reminiscent of "Father, Stretch My Hands." I don't know if it's the same sample. I'll have to look it up, but yeah, I thought the message was really interesting too. I had some notes. One of the lyrics is "Wrestling with God. I don't really want to wrestle," which I'm deep into season 5 of Dissect, which is on Kendrick Lamar's "Damn," and there's a lot of biblical references, and this one really this line in "Follow God" really stood out, because I learned about the story, or the meaning behind the word Israel, or the name Israel is, which obviously plays a key role in the Bible, means the one who wrestles with God. So like there's this like implicit, I guess, understanding that, or at least in my interpretation of that, is like there's an implicit battle one has with God.
Totally.
Even if you're of faith, you're going to be tested, and your faith is going to be challenged, and you're always kind of wrestling with God to kind of figure out his intentions. If you are a believer, figure out why things are happening to you. Why would God allow certain things to happen? And kind of always wrestling with that and wrestling with your faith. So that line really stuck out to me in that way. Same with the yelling at my dad. He said it ain't Christ-like. It's like throughout this whole album, there's just like he's talking God. He's spreading what his interpretation of the Word of God is, but he does it in a very, very, very Kanye-esque style. Like there's all these puns and jokes and
Yeah.
clever like dual meanings that are playing off of biblical stories or biblical names or um, I don't know. I just thought that was a funny. I think that's like the refrain of the song is that yelling at my dad. He said it ain't Christ-like,
Yeah.
and he has that thing at the end where he like explains the story of him arguing with his dad, and his dad kind of getting the final word with saying that ain't Christ-like and like kind of using his religion against him. But yeah,
Yeah. I think you're totally right. I mean, this wouldn't be a conversation between Dissect and Watching the Throne if we weren't talking about the story on a Kanye album.
yeah,
And obviously, we're not going to know immediately from like one listen, but from what I gathered on that first listen, and I think you're kind of hinting at it, the first half of the album in my eyes is kind of Kanye wrestling with God. And I guess wrestling with his commitment to God and becoming, in his mind, the right kind of Christian, somebody who lives by God's word properly. And we'll talk about the second half of the album later, but to me, like the second half kind of becomes like, after you found your place with God, like how do you then fit into society? But here, at least, I think you're totally right. And I think making it a very micro situation with his dad, it feels very much in the moment with Kanye and kind of like, like wouldn't leave or something. Like him and his wife arguing and shit.
yeah. I forgot what song it's on, but later on the album, he says like something about like Christians were like the first ones to judge him. So I could see that, I didn't think about that. I didn't really think narratively at all in this first listen. And so
For sure.
but I can see that being kind of a larger theme here of him welcoming this aspect into his life and then having to deal with how he, fits into society after kind of wanting to bring this in. You saw like in his real life in that clip that came out with him and Kim talking, and he was saying like, I don't want you to wear sexy clothes anymore. And then she was like, nah, like, I'm not on that wave right now, so you can't really like judge me in that way. So I can see that being like a battle that he's trying to, overcome.
I think that came through in the Zane Lowe interview. Like, he's asking people in the studio not to smoke and not have premarital sex. Like, as he said, he's kind of like in the early stages of it all and figuring it out.
Yeah, I feel like it's very much that, it's like he's definitely, I don't know, that just seems so cliche when I hear him say that. Like, really? Like, that's what it's about for you? Like, I don't know. Like, it seems like modern takes on, I don't know. Everyone has their own belief system, so I'm not really, I don't know exactly what's right or what's wrong, or, everyone kind of decides for their own. But that struck me as very traditional, which, for Kanye seems a little left field.
Yeah, and I think the next song, Closed on Sunday, gets into that a bit. Is that the song with God? No, this is the problem with doing a first reactions episode. I don't remember all the.
This is the one that he says like closed on Sunday Chick-fil-A, which I was
that was
laughing like so Kanye. It's such a Kanye line.
I think at was it at the Chicago show? I don't even remember, or maybe I read it in a tweet. God, I'm conflating them now, but I guess at one of the listening parties, he was like, oh, this song's called Closed on Sunday, and somebody screamed, this is the Chick-fil-A song. And Connie pointed at me, he's like, yeah, it is. But yeah, this song is amazing to me. Go for it.
Yeah, I just I had production notes here. Just it was like the first kind of dark minor key song, no drums, or if there was drums, they don't come until later. I can't remember, but yeah, just production wise, this was like a shift, which kind of went with a shift on. As we're kind of talking about, like one of the lines is not living for the culture. We're no longer slaves. And then like at some point he says, my life is no longer my own. And you can kind of like feel this struggle for him to like kind of letting go of trying to control his own life, which I know he touched on. And I haven't listened to the Zane Lowe interview fully yet, but I did listen to some of the Big Boy interview this morning. But he did talk about having to let go of his trying to control things and handing that over to God. So that was interesting. That theme kind of shows up on Closed on Sunday.
Yeah. You noted something I wanted to get into. You know, we were talking about later in the album, he seems to be very angry with the world. You know, he kind of goes after Christians that have tried to decry him. For an album called Jesus is King, for an album that is, you know, in quotes, a gospel album, it's kind of a dark album. And you're noting this song's in minor key, and there's a lot of synths. Like, what's your take on that? That, you know, I expected it to sound like Ultra Light Beam. In a lot of ways, it sounds like Jesus to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was definitely bright moments, but yeah, overall, it's definitely not like the tone set on every hour definitely doesn't play through the entire album. And it's interesting that he did announce that Christmas album, and I assume that album is going to be, if it comes out, I'm not falling for it. But if it does come out, I assume that that's going to be the more traditional
I would think
gospel album with, you know, just worship music, bright, something you would expect from someone calling an album Jesus is King. Like, this is very much, you know, Christ through Kanye's lens, you know, which I think is good. I think his personal expression of whatever he's going through is going to be the most successful or expressive. And so I'm glad that he didn't really try to like create some sound that he thought was in the tradition of church music or something, you know, some cliched version of rap. I'm glad he let his personality through. I'm glad he was still honest with, you know, a lot of this stuff. Like, even though this is an album for and about God, it's like Kanye's still the main subject. Like, maybe not towards the end, it gets more traditional, but like, you know, it's very much him still struggling with certain things, now religion being one of them. Or I don't even know. I don't think it's really, we should even refer to it as religion. It seems he's just following the gospel. But yeah, I mean, you know, all that to say, I guess, like, I'm glad that he stayed true to his own production, like, instincts and his own lyrical instincts, because that's, for me at least, like, that's what's going to make the best, most expressive, most honest project for Kanye, you know?
Yeah, I agree with all that, and feel like I said some version of it on my solo ep, so I'm going to stop dragging out this episode. Let's move on to On God. What do you think?
Yeah, this one, if I'm recalling, was like one of my favorite. There's drums throughout this one. I wrote drums down on my notes just because like there's such a lack of drums. When drums came in right away, I was like, oh, okay. Oh, and it has the crazy synth arpeggios. Yeah, this song's dope. This one felt like kind of like thematically, lyrically, it felt kind of like a autobiography. Because he kind of starts back, talks about his like early life, early music, in a very kind of almost like a journal entry way, kind of laying out his stresses. He cites the 13th Amendment on this song, which will come up again in a later song. And he says, 13th Amendment gotta end, that's on me. I thought that was pretty interesting. Maybe alluding to like Kim Kardashian's kind of new journey through the legal system. One really funny line that I wrote down was, it's so Kanye, thought the book of Job was a job. It's like,
classic.
So Kanye, yeah. So that one made me laugh. But yeah, this one was my, at least on first listen, it was definitely a standout track for me.
I feel like that happens with every time I listen to a Kanye album. Like, I have a new favorite every time I listen to it.
First listens are rough for that because it's like, what strikes you kind of viscerally doesn't always strike you a couple weeks later as hard as something you're able to wrap your head around a little bit better after multiple listens.
Jordan and Chris will hold me to this. It's on record. The first time I listened through, I was kind of underwhelmed by Salah, and now I feel like I committed a terrible sin.
No, I do that a lot with albums, actually. Like, I'll be some of my favorite songs, I'm just like, on first listen.
Yeah.
And I think that's natural because it's like, I've learned to love that feeling, especially with somebody like I trust, like
Mm-hmm.
Kanye, where it's like it doesn't always pay off, but most, I would say, more often than not, it does. So like
Mm-hmm.
I like that uncomfortable first listen, that feeling that you get sometimes with certain songs or even full albums, you know.
Yeah, totally, totally. I talked about this in my episode, but I was very uncomfortable in my first listen because, and you maybe you can relate to this. I study Kanye so much, and I feel like I know his music so well that when I go in, I'm kind of in scholar mode, and I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna understand this album the first time. Like, fuck you, Kanye. But there's no way it's happening. Like, I'm
No.
always a little bit behind. So the second time through, I'm like, oh, Salah's like a fucking banger. Like, duh.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
everything we need. Was it everything you needed, Cole?
Yeah. I didn't have much. I had notes on this. Only
There's
note
not
I
much
have,
going on.
yeah, I can't even remember what it sounds like right now off the top of my head. The only note that I had is, what if Eve made apple juice? And then I have LOL.
I mean, that's the beauty of Kanye. He's making you laugh while you're experiencing a great album.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, to be honest, I can't recall. I need to listen to this song more because I didn't have much notes on it.
Okay. Listen to the Watching the Throne episode for it then. Let's
Yeah.
move on to Water, which to me is a classic.
Yeah, this I think I had the same experience you had with Salah on Water, because I feel like there's a build up for this song because it's the one that we've heard kind of the most of
Sure.
and the most about. But I think I'm gonna need to listen to it a few more times. There was definitely, I mean, I liked it, but it wasn't like a huge standout yet for me. I like the I put down Stevie Wonder music vibes.
Totally.
Kind of has this really 70s kind of. I'll have to study the chords, but the chords were just reminded me of Stevie Wonder, something Stevie Wonder would do. It was interesting too that there's like this litany at the end, and I only know about litanies because of Kendrick Lamar, but a litany is like this old kind of I don't know if you'd call it poetic form, but like literary form that starts with, it's like basically whenever anyone like starts each line with a certain word or repetitive phrase. Like if you're familiar with "Feel" by Kendrick Lamar, you know every line of that song starts with "I feel like," and it's "I feel like this, I feel like this, I feel like this, I feel like this." And Femi, my co-writer, pointed out in the season that that's like that began in the church, and there's these things called holy litanies, and Kanye actually employs this litany literary device at the end where everything is Jesus blank, Jesus blank. You know, every line of his verse starts with the word Jesus is this. So that, I thought that was pretty interesting because it is kind of a traditional form in the church. But yeah, I think this song I need to listen to more to really understand. I'm curious to hear why you feel like it's a classic.
Yeah, I just love the way, I guess, it moves. Like, that's what I love about a lot of these songs is, I think on the first listen, I was like, oh, like some of the songs, like they don't really change much. Like there's kind of just like one sound and there's not much going on. And to me, Water, the way it ebbs and flows is kind of amazing. Like, kind of like...
Is it water-like?
I wasn't even thinking of that. It like... Not that I'm comparing it to Runaway because the song's 2 minutes and 48 seconds long. Like it's not Runaway, but it kind of moves in that way. Like it has so many parts and so many things. Like I feel like I could pick out. Like when Kanye comes in, I'm like, oh fuck, this is like a different song now, and I'm playing catch up. And I just love the way it sounded and everything. So I was really surprised it was so short though, because I'm pretty sure at Sunday service it was like this big kind of epic thing they did. So. Curious about
that's definitely one note I have, generally speaking. Like I guess he did it on Ye a little bit, but all the songs are way short. Like there's only 2 songs, either 1 or 2 songs that are over 3 minutes and 30 seconds, but the majority of them are 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So that was definitely something that caught my attention because at least on first listen, I don't know if that, because I get that's like what people are doing now in the streaming area. It's like all about short songs. But with Kanye, I just don't, and this maybe be my own personal expectations of what I want his music to be, which is not a great way to think, honestly. But like
Right.
for his production style, I just don't know if it's suited for short songs. Like
Hmm.
there's so much that he's capable of doing, and he knows how to elongate songs so well. I think that's one of his superpowers, is developing a song
Hmm.
into a 5 minute, 7 minute masterpiece. Runaway is like a perfect example of taking nothing and making it, one of the best songs ever made. Um, and I don't know, yeah, I just was kind of caught off guard by the brevity of most of the songs. But again, I'm only one listen in, and so maybe I just need to kind of get acclimated to this format.
Yeah, I totally understand it. And kind of like I was saying, I think maybe I've just gone because I, look at Kanye's music so much, and because on the show we'll spend an hour and a half talking about a song that's 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
Like to me, a lot of his songs do have the movement of Runaway, just like they're not as long.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's always a strange process of Kanye. But anyway, God is. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, another classic Kanye sample. Um, Kind of singing in this high register
Oh
with
yeah,
no auto tune, which I liked actually. And
the
then
most
like,
bare he's ever been, probably.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like it definitely up there with one of the more like expressive and emotive songs, especially towards the end. He kind of lets his voice get really scratchy,
Hmm.
which I thought was on first listen at least like very powerful. Um, yeah, he has like this weird ability to sing badly but enjoyably. like, technically he's not a good singer at all. He's not good whatsoever, to be honest, from a traditional musical aspects. But he knows melody, and I think most importantly, he knows. He could get it better if he wants, I'm sure, but he knows the power of like raw emotion, and I think that was definitely displayed here on God Is. Because it was very moving despite it being like technically not great. And he's done that on a number of songs, but I feel like it was definitely laid out more bare than a lot of his stuff before.
Hmm. Yeah, totally agree. It's a strange one. And then Hands On. Oh God, Hands On. Cole, you better like this one.
Hands on. Let me see. I'm trying to look. It's really hard.
You
To
could
keep
listen
all
to it
these
a little
songs
if you
straight.
want.
I've been working here for it my whole life. Yeah, I just have song lyrics here. Can you remind me of the production?
Yeah, can I play it?
Oh yeah, yeah. If you can play it,
Here, let's see if you can. Hopefully, you can hear it on my
there you
end.
go.
Can you hear this?
Okay, yeah. No, this one definitely. I like this one a lot. And I don't think it has drums. Maybe drums at the end, but or no, drums coming at the end at the on the next song. So this one might have no drums at all. But yeah, no, I like that. This one definitely felt very confessional. I know he says at some point somebody pray for me, and saying like he felt like nobody loves me. Actually reminded me of Kendrick Lamar again, the song Feel, where basically the refrain is ain't nobody praying for me. And it was like, Feel is all about Kendrick's like isolation and feeling like no one's, he's praying for the whole world, but no one's praying for him. And I feel like a lot of this album for Kanye is in his own Kanye way, feeling like no one's on his side. And that he's trying to do like God's work or the world's work or contribute to humanity in this grandiose way. And yet he only gets, backlash for the Trump hat and his kind of frustration with that, his perception of the world.
And then finally, we have the song that everybody had been waiting for, the Clips reunion. Use This Gospel. What did you think of this
Yeah,
one?
this was definitely like the standout song for me. I don't know if that's because it came at the end, but this was my favorite on first listen. Plus, I just like Pusha T is like my favorite rapper, so to hear him on this was great. To hear Malice come in was amazing, and then like if you listen to the production when Malice comes in, it's like this. I don't know what they do. I need to figure it out, but the choir is either turned up or there's more voices because there's a choir all the way through. But when Malice comes in, I think they drop everything but the choir, and like they really let that just it's like this super intense, emotional, powerful moment when he comes in and raps. That was like one of my favorite moments on the entire album. And then like the drums come in at the end, and it's like super impactful. Mostly because it's like there's very little drums, traditional drums, throughout the entire album. So then to like have this build up to hear clips like reunited on this song, and then like those drums come in, it's like it's just very rewarding moment.
Totally. Yeah. And then finally, Jesus is Lord. Do you have notes on this one?
I just saw I have French horn section. So that's what caught me. It was like it was all. I'm pretty sure it's like all. It starts out with just French horns, but I think other horns come in. But I thought that was really cool. Actually, I was wondering how he came up with that, or who wrote that, or if it's sampled. But it doesn't sound sampled, so I need to research a little bit on what's going on there.
Now, Cole, you would know this better than most. Are French horns typically used on hip hop songs?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And they didn't sound like fake French horns, which when French horn is used on hip hop, it's always synthetic. But these sound like real French horns. So
who knows? Maybe Kanye plays French horn.
Yeah, it's actually one of the hardest instruments to play. So I doubt it.
I played trombone in junior high. I always did feel sorry for the kids on French horn, more than anything though, because there were only two of them, and it seemed kind of like the lame instrument. But now that you're saying it, it seems like it's one of the harder ones.
It's hard. It's super limited on what you can do. I don't know why anyone chooses to play that instrument. I'm pretty sure everyone gets forced to play that instrument. I just don't see the incentive. It's a beautiful instrument, but it's just, I don't know. And then there's like the spit. You have to, you know all about the spit.
Oh yeah.
It's like
I'd love to get Andrew White and Nicole Nichols, the two people that played French horn at my junior high orchestra, and get them in here and see if they're still on it.
Still playing for their passion.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, I gave up on trombone.
Yeah, most people do. It's not a very self-sufficient instrument. You have to like be playing with people to make. I feel like you have to be playing with people all the time to make it feel like, I don't know. It's not something you just. It's not like a guitar or piano where you can actually like play songs or make up your own songs. It's like, yeah.
Do you mean a trombone?
What's up?
Were you talking about a trombone?
Or any horn instrument.
Oh, any horn instrument, sure. Yeah. Well, I will say though, trombones get you jacked because you're like moving your arms so much. My forearms were ripped.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, so that's every song. Overall, Cole, like, what's your overall impression of it?
Yeah, I liked it. I really liked it. I definitely like it more than Yay. I liked Yay, but I think it was. It's not something that I return to a lot. I definitely listen to like Pablo more than Ye. I was really fearing that because this was so close to Ye release wise, I think it's been just over a year or something, that he kind of rushed this one. I was really worried that it was going to be another kind of sloppy project, but I didn't get that impression, at least on first listen. The production I felt like was really, really solid. The sonic quality was really good, and I think definitely far superior to Ye just in terms of just sound quality. The mixes were better. No offense to whoever mixed Ye, but it was like that was definitely rushed because they were doing it like literally right before the party. So I just was, all in all, I'm glad that he took the extra time that he needed. I'm definitely going to need to like get used to the shorter songs from him. And see if I can get used to that. But I would say I had very little expectations just because I don't know where Kanye's at mentally. He's got a lot going on. I don't know how dedicated he is to music, but it seems clear that this album at least he spent a lot of time on it. And I'm just, more than anything, after one listen, I'm just kind of antsy to listen to it again and again and kind of start to extract some of the deeper meanings and messages, but also like some of the more production, because it was definitely very impressive on first listen. But now I just need to go and like kind of pick apart what he's doing and formulate some more thoughts. So I'll be doing, just to kind of plug myself, if you don't mind, but I'm going to be doing not a first reaction, but a more methodical analysis and conversation about it later on next week on Dissect feed. So if you're interested in hearing me talk more about it with my co-writer Femi, I think we're going to do an episode on it. And Femi is I don't know how you describe him. He's Christian. He knows more about the Bible, biblical history, than anyone I've ever talked to. He's really, really smart guy, and I'm really I think we're gonna have a great conversation about it, because he's gonna come from a very religious perspective about it, and I think he's gonna have some insights that I certainly won't have. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. So if anyone wants to check that out, it'll be up later next week on the Dissect podcast feed.
Yeah, I'll be downloading that shit for sure. It feels weird to say shit now. I feel like I shouldn't curse anymore.
Yeah.
I think Kanye converted me.
Yeah, he did cuss in the Big Boy interview that I.
Oh, really?
I heard. Yeah, he said. I think he said bitches, like something about your bitches on Instagram or something, and then he said something like his stock in God or something just fell or something. He made some joke about it, but yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting few months or few years and see where this kind of this new Christian thing takes Kanye.
Totally. I'm excited. And thanks so much, Cole, for coming on here. We know you don't have to do this, but I guess if you're going to talk about Jesus is King, this is the show to do it. So
no, for sure. Yeah.
You're welcome to you.
Cool, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And until next time, keep it wavy or stay loopy or whatever we say.
You got to come up with a new one now. That's religious.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Keep it holy.
Keep it holy.